Hey everybody, it's the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm Aaron Maté, sitting in for Jimmy. I'm here with Misha Pollan and Americans comedian Kurt Metzger.
That's right.
How's it going, Kurt?
Every time I hear Americans comedian, I still like it.
Well, we're going to turn now to the latest in Ukraine, and for that, we are going to be joined by Scott Ritter. He is a former Marine Corps intelligence officer who's the author of several books, including his latest, Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, Arms Control, and the End of the Soviet Union. Scott Ritter, how's it going?
It's going great, thanks. How about you?
Good.
Going okay?
Everything's going good, and thanks for making the time. I know you're very busy. So let's check out the latest in Ukraine, where this just happened. This from PBS NewsHour. Russia's defense ministry said Monday that 63 Russian soldiers have been killed by a Ukrainian strike on a facility in the eastern Donetsk region where military personnel was stationed. And here is a Russian military spokesperson announcing the attack.
The regime targeted a temporary deployment point of one of the units of the Russian armed forces near the settlement of Makivka in the Donetsk People's Republic with 6 rockets of US-made HIMARS multiple rocket launchers. Russian air defense systems shot down 2 HIMARS rockets. As a result of the strike of 4 missiles with a high explosive warhead at a temporary deployment point, 63 Russian servicemen were killed. All necessary assistance and support will be provided to the relatives and friends of the killed servicemen.
And there's been some complaints from pro-Russian military bloggers on social media who have basically accused the Russian military leadership of being reckless here and placing these soldiers in that position. So this is from Haaretz. Russian military bloggers say the huge destruction caused by the attack was the result of storing ammunition in the same building as a barracks, despite commanders knowing it was within range of Ukrainian rockets. And here's some apparent footage. This is apparent footage. I haven't verified this, but this is apparently footage from the scene of the attack. They're showing the wreckage. And it's interesting. So Russia says 63 of its forces were killed. Ukraine, though, says the number could be as high as 400, if not more. And this is being described as one of the deadliest, if not the deadliest, attack on Russian forces by Ukraine since the start of the Russian invasion. And the weapon they used in this was U.S. weaponry. And this comes just after President Zelensky visited Washington and received a new round of support and pledges of more weapons. So let me bring in Scott Ritter. You are a former Marine Corps intelligence officer, and your new book is Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, Arms Control, and the End of the Soviet Union. What do you make of this deadly strike on Russian forces?
Well, first of all, let's understand that Russia's at war. People are going to die. The Ukrainians are a very capable military. They're being backed up by the united force of NATO. They're firing a HIMARS system, which is an advanced U.S. multiple rocket launch system. The rockets they're using have GPS guidance systems, which means they're precision guided. So if you give them a target, if you say hit this point, it will hit that point. So if the Russians, who know the range arc of this weapon, this isn't the first time they've encountered this weapon. If the Russians were careless enough to provide a target, an easily recognizable target, and not provide it with sufficient protection, then this is the sort of thing that's going to happen. Apparently, this attack took place right at the stroke of midnight, so it was a New Year's Eve gift from Ukraine to Russia. It was the building in question, I think, was a public school building, abandoned, of course, not used as a school, but a well-known facility. And if the Russians used it to house troops within striking distance of the enemy, then shame on Russia. I mean, this is bad. And if they combine the billeting of troops in the same place that they were storing ammunition, that's 2 strikes. And then there's some more elements to this that there were certain elements within the Russian command structure that were concerned about this building being a target with these troops there, with the ammunition there, and they had requested permission to evacuate, to disperse, to not be there. And if the case is, if that is true and the Russian command was slow to react or ignored it, that's strike three. So this isn't a good thing for Russia. It's not a good look for Russia. It's a tragedy for all involved. But I don't mean to smile and laugh. It doesn't mean anything except for the sorrow of the families involved. Russia's going to lose hundreds of more troops in the days, weeks, months to come, thousands of more troops as this war grinds on. The same day that Russia had this barracks struck, Russia struck 4 similar barracks facilities housing Ukrainian troops, with equal or greater casualties inflicted on the Ukrainians at each site. You don't see the media going crazy about that, though, about the imminent defeat of Ukraine, the demise of Zelensky, etc. It's called war. Both sides are seeking out concentrations of forces. Both sides are using the resources available. This, you could mitigate against this. The Marine Corps, one of the finest fighting forces in the world, with my prejudice obviously there. My God, we put hundreds of Marines in a barracks in Beirut during the Civil War. And then we limited the rules of engagement so that the troops couldn't have, ammunition in their gun. They had to be attacked first. We allowed a suicide truck to come in and blow the barracks up, killing 241 Marines. So, everybody makes mistakes, and this is a horrible mistake. But I'm not a fan of so-called pro-Russian bloggers who immediately broadcast out Ukrainian propaganda. I mean, they're talking 600 dead at one point in time, that this is a disaster for Putin. It means the end of the Russian military. It means none of this. This is a tragedy. There's at least 63 Russian families that are going to get some of the hardest news any family can get. And it's even harder because these deaths were avoidable, or could have been avoidable, or at least most of them could have been, or should have been, if some of the reporting is true. But it doesn't change the trajectory of the conflict. That's where I stand on this. It's a tragedy. It's probably a leadership failure on certain aspects of the Russian leadership, but it doesn't change any aspect of this conflict except to make it more bloody.
Well, let me ask you, can you explain why you're still confident in your assessment that Russia will ultimately prevail in this fight, even as you acknowledged earlier that Russia is effectively fighting a NATO force, and NATO's pouring a huge amount of weaponry. Zelensky just got a new round of pledges, although he didn't get all the weapons that he wanted, but he's still getting some substantial assistance. So why are you still confident that Russia will ultimately be the victor here?
Well, I'll link my confidence in this answer to the words of General Zaluzhny, who is the commander of the Ukrainian armed forces, in an interview he gave to The Economist. It was an interesting interview because Zelensky was sitting at the table and didn't say a damn word. Tells you who's in charge. It ain't Zelensky. And Zaluzhny basically, like every general officer should do, confidently said, I can beat these guys, the Russians. I can beat them. But then comes the heavy caveat. But you got to give me 300 tanks, 500 armored fighting vehicles, 500 artillery systems, and unlimited ammunition. And if you don't give me this, then I'm not going to win because the Russians are coming. And nobody's giving him that, which means he's not going to win. Not my words, his words. When we take a look at two factors, I call one is the burn rate and the other one's the replenishment rate. Right now, the Ukrainians are burning through troops at a rate of 800 to 1,000 a day. The Russians are suffering 1/10 of that. That means they're losing 80 to 100 a day. That's a lot. During the Vietnam War, we lost 200 plus a week, and that was sort of a crushing defeat to America. It broke the will of the Americans. The Russians are losing maybe 500 guys a week. That's a lot, but they're slaughtering, they're eviscerating the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians got nothing coming in. High burn rate, low replenishment rate. Meanwhile, the Russians, low burn rate, extremely high replenishment rate. Only 50% of their 300,000 mobilized troops have been deployed to the region. The other 50%, around 175,000, are still receiving their final training, being equipped with the most modern equipment in the Russian inventory. T-90 tanks, T-80 tanks, advanced T-72 tanks, advanced artillery, etc. That's 10 to 15 division equivalents that have yet to show up on the battlefield. And when they do, the Ukrainians have nothing to respond with. General Zaluzhny said, I need 300 tanks, 500 armored fighters. He doesn't have them. He's not going to get them. It's game, set, match. Russia's going to win this thing. Is it going to be easy? No. Is there going to be blood spilled? Yes, we just saw it. It's going to be as ugly as war can possibly get, but Russia's going to win.
Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there.